Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to hang out with me a bit on this Sunday, October 22nd. It is 9:30 p.m. here in New York, and it was a beautiful day today for a change. It's been rainy pretty much a lot of weekends in a row, and so it was nice to see the sun again today, finally. It looks like we're generating some interest in this case, huh? This is a pretty good showing for 9:30 at night on a Sunday. So many of you had requested to watch the testimony of Detective Graham, so here we are. I know that there are so many of you in the chat that are subscribers and that are watching this trial also on a daily basis with some other YouTubers that are streaming it live. And I suggest that if you are going to watch the testimony live, that you go to one of those YouTubers that does it live. Recovery Addict was in the chat the other night. I don't know if he's here tonight, but it was nice to see him in here. And then after I did see him in here, because I typically don't watch other people's coverage of this case because I don't want it to cloud my view of the case or anything that I do say. But I did go check out his stream and it's really nice. And the chat is really nice. And the people in the chat are really nice. So I know that those of you that have tried to watch it on Law and Crime or Court TV, and even Tampa 13 is better, I would say, the chat than the other two, because the other two chats are really vicious, really vicious. So for those of you who have not met me before, hello, I'm Melanie Little. I'm an attorney in New York. I come to you. I'm a recovering lawyer, I like to say, because I'm not actively taking cases right now, but I do come to you with a 30 years experience of litigation experience as a trial lawyer in New York State and federal courts. I am now a legal analyst, commentator, and working actor when the union is not on strike, because the unions have been on strike for quite some time. Somebody asked that question the other night. The writers' strike is over, but the SAG-AFTRA Actors Union is still on strike. We are hoping that everybody gets back to work soon so that everyone can have some new programming to watch pretty soon, because without these TV shows in production, there's nothing to watch. Those of you who are waiting for Law and Order to come on, and Law and Order SVU, and Law and Order Organized Crime, not happening. Not happening until at least January. But I know that I like to watch those shows. Hello, Robbie. I see you getting in there early. Robbie with the $5 super chat. Hello, Mel, and all you wonderful friends. Yes, this is a very safe place for people to watch this coverage. We have been known as the, I don't know, maybe the empathetic stream and the empathetic chat. We have many viewers and many subscribers who either suffer with CRPS, which is the disease that Maya Kowalski is afflicted with, that is the subject of this medical malpractice wrongful death lawsuit that is currently on trial in Florida. Kowalski versus Johns Hopkins All Children's Medical Center, Medical Hospital, JHATCH, they call it for short. So many of my viewers have CRPS. They are happy to talk to you in the chat if you don't understand it. They are happy to tell you about how long it took them to get diagnosed with CRPS. They are happy to tell you, maybe not happy to tell you, but they will tell you that it is the most painful disease known to medicine. It is more painful than natural childbirth, and a lot of people in our chat will tell you that they have it. I'm going to see who's here. And I don't know who yet, but you are free to ask questions. Keep the chat classy. Be nice to each other. There will be no personal attacks on each other, on me or my moderators, because my moderators are vigilant. They will block you. They will time you out. Hello, Miss Donna Marie. Are you in there? Yay. I'm so glad you're feeling better. And so keep it classy, guys, because we're just not going to tolerate the hatred, the vitriol. There's too much of that already going on in the world, and we're just not going to tolerate it in our chat. So many other people are nurses, doctors, retired law enforcement guys, Peter Pranzo, Scott, and Dennis, all my retired law enforcement guys who are my Moderators, I'm going to lean on you heavily tonight because I want you to watch the testimony of this detective and I want to know what you think about it. Also, so many in the chat are suffering with chronic pain, fibromyalgia, Lyme disease, other things that are very difficult to diagnose and that do cause severe pain, and it's chronic, and there needs to be a better understanding of what's going on in this case for many reasons. And I'm glad that there is so much more public interest in this case than when I started these streams right around opening statements, I think. I think the first video that I did was sort of an overview of the case, and then the second video was opening statements, and then I've done sporadic sort of catch-up videos since then. I do not cover the trial coverage every single day. I just don't have the time for that. But I do try and cover what I think are the important witnesses, the important testimony, and I know that a lot of you are watching daily, so you know a lot more than I do. So if I lean on you, I may need some help. I don't pretend to know everything about this case, but this is a case that is close to my heart. It involves a child. It involves parental rights being stripped based on a false allegation of MBP, I'm going to call it. If anybody doesn't know what MBP is, they can spell it out for you in the chat. But again, last night's stream that I did with you guys, and we were on for 4 hours, the second we hit go and it was off, YouTube struck it as being not friendly to advertisers because of the subject matter. So we have to be careful what we say. And yesterday we were careful. We didn't say anything. So, I can appeal it. It takes time. The problem is it doesn't get the stream out there. It doesn't push it out. So the only people that are seeing it are my viewers, my subscribers. And this is really an important case. So we just got to keep our words in check. CRPS is also known as the, quote, S disease, S being the word that stands for unaliving, because that's how painful it is. That is the nickname of this disease. Keep that in mind if you are new here. I'm going to start right away with the testimony. Anybody who's not familiar with the case, if you need to ask questions in the chat, everyone is so friendly and they will definitely answer your questions. And they are here to help, just like I am here to help. So without any further ado, we are going to look at the testimony from Friday of Detective Graham, who is the detective who interviewed or interrogated, depending on your point of view, Jack Kowalski, Maya's father, in the hospital. Yes, Chris, Cindy Brady. Is it really the Cindy Brady? Thank you for all you're doing. I don't understand why YouTube is afraid of real life. I don't understand it either. This is real life events. This is trial coverage. So, I'm not sitting here promoting K as a fun thing to do when you're out at a club on a Friday night. That's not the context that these words are taken in, but whatever. I don't know. I don't get it. I have a feeling that they may be showing ads on that stream anyway and just telling me that they're not. So if you don't have YouTube Premium, and just take a look at last night's stream and see if you are getting ads, not just before the video, but in the middle of the video or at any point during the video, because it's 4 hours long and it's a bummer that it's not getting out there. But, we did hit 15,000 subscribers last night. So yay, you guys, love you guys. And I just started this channel in June, late June. So we're growing, we're loving it. You guys are amazing. You've been so supportive. And I'm not a cupcake. That's what it says right there. And I'm not a cupcake. The pink sign behind me, which you can't read, says, "You can't make everyone happy. You are not a cupcake." I am here. I am an attorney. I'm going to give you my opinions on the case. I'm not going to just sit here like a robot and watch coverage with you without commenting on it. I do stop the testimony if I want to make a point. If you don't like that or you're not into it, then, maybe this isn't the channel for you. There's some other, channels out there that cover it, that either put together a montage of photos with an AI voice behind it, or, or just cover the coverage without saying anything. And, that's a different kind of channel. So if you're here for my opinions. And if you don't like them, turn the channel. That's all I got to say. I don't know. I don't want to get too much into it, but you guys know, my cupcakes know. Thanks, Robbie. Okay. Let's go to this testimony, because it's riveting. I got to say, it's riveting. All right. Let me know you can hear it before we move on.
Okay. May it please the court. Good morning and happy Friday.
Good morning.
Okay. Would you introduce yourself to the jury, please?
Hi, I'm Stephanie Graham.
Okay. Ms. Graham, will you give this jury the benefit of your background and education? Well, let me just set the table first. We're going to talk to you about some involvement in.
Let me set the table first, he says, like we're in some sort of, I don't even know what that is, an advertising meeting. Okay, just for those of you who are not aware, this is a witness called by the defense. So this is the defense attorney, the attorney for the hospital who is questioning her. I just want to point out that this is interesting because last night we watched, remember Tori Niehouse's testimony? A lot of people are calling her the lady with the pink shirt. This witness looks more to me like a nurse. Like it almost looks like her shirt underneath is scrubs than a detective. And Tori Niehaus looked more like a detective than a supervised visitation person. But that's just my opinion, just to point it out. So this is the defense attorney questioning the detective.
And will you give this jury the benefit of your background and education? Well, let me just set the table first. We're going to talk to you about some involvement in this case, in the Kowalski case, in October, November of 2016. Okay.
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what was your occupation at that time?
I was a detective with the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office.
Okay. Now we're going to work backwards.
Okay.
Can you tell the jury, starting with college, where did you go to school?
I graduated from University of South Florida with a Bachelor in Arts in Criminology. From there, I went to the Sarasota Criminal Justice Academy, where I graduated first in my class in 1998 and subsequently was hired by the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office.
Okay.
First in her class, you guys. She was first in her class. All right, I forgot I have to talk a little more softly because I know the audio on this is not that loud, so I will try and be more soft.
Okay. Did you go to the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office right out of, I think you said it was a detective school or officer school? Criminal Justice
Academy. Within about a couple weeks, my hiring process, I believe, had started prior to my graduation from the academy. And then I was hired April 30th of 1998 because I just retired this past May.
So we're bringing you back. We're going to put you through a little memory contest. But so once you finished the academy and you have the job at the sheriff's office and that time period, what did you do for the first years? What types of roles?
Okay, so during my 25 years with the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office, I had the privilege of working in several different areas. One being a court deputy. I worked as a patrol deputy, a criminal investigations detective, a special investigations detective, a special victims unit detective, and a civil unit deputy.
Okay. Was there a time that you became assigned to what the jury may know of as sort of special victims or vulnerable victims units?
Yes, I became a member of the special victims unit, I believe, in June of 2012. That unit is responsible for investigating crimes involving child victims that might be child abuse, neglect, also vulnerable adults such as disabled or elderly adults. Those individuals in our community who are most vulnerable.
Were you in that role in October and November of 2016?
I was.
Okay. And I understand that you recently retired?
I did in May of this year.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank you.
So let me ask you a little bit about your involvement in the Kowalski case. Okay. How does, and maybe I can just sort of streamline this. When a call is made to the abuse and neglect hotline, is there a track that involves law enforcement?
Yes, generally there.
Yep.
They have this white noise machine that they play when they do their sidebars. And so that the witness can't hear what they're talking about. But Recovery Addict on his stream, he must have some really amazing equipment. I guess, that he can sometimes hear what the lawyers are saying and he repeats what they're saying. And it's really cool. So I listened to some of that today when I was in the car.
Let me just try to streamline this so we can get to the reason we called you. Once the call is made, the law, if I understand what your testimony would be, the law enforcement angle of this would get assigned from your sergeant to you. Is that right?
Yes, generally my sergeant would assign the cases that came in through DCF to investigators within our unit.
Okay. And then the reason why you decided you wanted to meet with Jack Kowalski would be in pursuant of that investigation. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. There was a date, and I'll reference to you that it was November 17th, 2016, that you had the opportunity to meet with Jack Kowalski. Is that right?
I don't remember the date specifically, but if that was noted, yes.
Okay. Why did you want to meet with Mr. Kowalski?
Well, at that point, I had been in contact with the Department of Children and Families about the progress of their case, and I was told that Jack.
Okay, I'll lead. Okay. Well, let me just lead you through there. You met with Jack Kowalski at All Children's Hospital.
I did.
Right? Okay. And you met with him in order to get his understanding of the situation that you were investigating. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. And just to be clear, when you met with him, you're not affiliated with All Children's. You're meeting with him totally separate as a member of the Sarasota County Sheriff's Department. True?
Correct.
Okay.
See how he's distancing her from the hospital immediately? I mean, that's his job. They're going to point the finger at everybody else. They're going to say, it's not our fault. It's not our fault that she was held hostage in our hospital for 87 days until Beata took her life. So she wasn't released until a week after that. So over 90 days. It wasn't our fault. It was their fault. They're the ones who set the wheels in motion, guys. Remember that. They set the wheels in motion within, somebody help me out on this, but Maya was admitted, went to the ER on October 7th of 2016, was admitted immediately into the PICU, same day, the pediatric ICU, complaining of severe pain. She had been to Johns Hopkins Hospital before. They had a diagnosis for Maya of CRPS in her electronic medical record, because not only had she been there, I think the week before, with also abdominal pain, but they also had installed a port in Maya's body for her to receive infusion therapy. Whether you agree with the treatment or not, the K therapy that she was receiving, they knew about it. They knew she had CRPS. And after the first call that they made to the abuse hotline, they in fact, Dr. Sally Smith, in fact, spoke with Dr. Kirkpatrick. We went over his testimony and her testimony. And Dr. Kirkpatrick confirmed the diagnosis of CRPS. But then, so that initial complaint of medical CA or MBP against Beata was dismissed, and they made a second call to the hotline because they didn't like that Beata was a fierce advocate for her daughter. They didn't like, apparently, that Maya was allegedly cursing when they were trying to shove a feeding tube up her nose. And they made allegations that Maya was a victim of MBP and her mother was inflicting this disease upon her, or making it up, or they were both making it up, or they were faking. This set in progress. The wheels were in motion. And within a week, Jack and Beata's parental rights were stripped. Maya was put into state custody based on these false allegations. And this 10-year-old girl spent over 90 days prisoner in Johns Hopkins Hospital as a ward of the state. She was forbidden to have any contact with her mother in person. She could only have supervised phone calls with her mother. Her father was allowed supervised visitation, and this witness is going to talk a little bit about that, but the witness we covered last night, that was her job, was to sit there during those supervised visits. And if this does not frighten you as a parent, it should. It should. And it also should frighten you that in this county in Florida, Pinellas County, DCF, or what we call in New York CPS, Child Protective Services, Department of Children and Families, is privatized. It is not run by the county. It is not run by the state. So Sally Smith, Dr. Sally Smith, is employed by a private company whose job it is to take children away. Follow the money. It's my opinion. I'm going to say it. Buckle up for this person's testimony. Yes, Suncoast did settle out of court, correct? However, so the only defendant left is the hospital, but plaintiffs are alleging that Sally Smith held herself out as an employee of the hospital, as a doctor that was affiliated with the hospital, and that she was their agent, and that they should also be responsible for her misdeeds. Kathy Beatty, however, the social worker, definitely is employed by the hospital, or was at the time of this action in 2016, as were several other doctors who have testified, and they've already agreed, the hospital, that they are accepting liability on behalf of those other doctors who were employed by the hospital. So here we go. Detective Stephanie Graham. What'd she say? Sarasota Sheriff's Department? If one of you guys in the chat could tell me the difference, because, I don't live in Florida, and I'm also not up on my law enforcement lingo. What's the difference between the Sheriff's Department and the police department? Is there a difference? I'm just interested to know that. So if one of you guys can think about that answer while we go on with her testimony.
Where did you meet with him?
At All Children's Hospital, we were given a private room. I believe it was like a family waiting room where we had an opportunity to speak privately.
Okay. How are you attired when we met him?
Fairly the way I would be today, slacks, a blouse. I would be wearing a badge and my gun.
Okay. And how would you introduce yourself to?
And my gun. She's going to say that 4 or 5 times. And my gun.
Mr. Kowalski?
I would introduce myself then as Detective Graham with Sarasota County Sheriff's Office.
Okay. Would you have given him your card?
Of course, if as a general rule, either before or after, I would supply someone my card.
Okay. Did you tell Mr. Kowalski that his interview with you was completely voluntary?
I did.
Okay. And did he agree to sit down and talk with you?
Yes.
Do you remember approximately how long the conversation was?
I don't. I know that it was long. I don't have it was over an hour, well over an hour.
Did you tell him at least twice that he was free to leave the conversation at any time?
I know that later in the conversation, I did tell him and reminded him that I'd already told him this was voluntary. The door was unlocked. He was free to leave if he wanted.
Okay. Did you record the conversation?
I did record the conversation.
Okay. And why do you record conversations?
Recording a conversation during an investigation is the most accurate way to determine what was said during an interview.
You've had a chance to listen to the audio.
Parts of it.
Right.
Okay, so that's what she said, that's the most accurate way of memorializing the conversation or the interrogation or the interview is to record it. What if portions of it are unintelligible? What if portions are garbled? She's not taking any notes. She's just relying on this recording from her iPhone. I don't know. Talk to me, law enforcement.
Are you able to tell the jury whether your recorder was by phone, on the table? What's your best recollection of this?
My best recollection that it was likely my iPhone is what we would use, our work issued phone.
And is that a phone that you would have put on the table, most likely? Do you know?
Probably. Pardon.
Okay. Let me ask you about some of the conversation that you had with Mr. Kowalski. When you met with Mr. Kowalski, did he talk to you about any meetings that he had at the hospital regarding his consent for treatment there?
Yes, he did describe a conversation that had taken place where he had expressed his consent for the child to be treated.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd like to publish to the jury what's been previously marked into identification as Defense Exhibit 3121A.
Yes.
I mean, when we were in the meeting with the doctors one day, and the other one saying, Maya, I'll sign her out. And I said, hold on, time out. And if this wasn't in a, wasn't written down, which I
Okay, this is unintelligible to me. I'm going to turn on the closed captions. Try not to rely on them because they are sometimes terrible, but we're going to see if we can get through this with the closed captioning. Hard for me to understand. Maybe it's easier for you just because I have a little earbud in.
When you met with Mr. Kowalski, did he talk to you about any meetings that he had at the hospital regarding his consent for treatment there?
Yes, he did describe a conversation that had taken place where he had expressed his consent for the child to be treated.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd like to publish to the jury what's been previously marked into identification as Defense Exhibit 3121A.
Yes.
I mean, when we were in the meeting with the doctors one day, and the other one saying, Maya, I'll sign her out. And I said, hold on, time out. And if this wasn't in a, wasn't written down, which I was kind of mad about, but I asked the doctors, I said, what's the time frame you're talking about? And they explained, I said, that's doable. And was my wife happy with what I said? No, absolutely not. So you have to, there's times I'm gonna go the other way.
Okay. And thanks for sharing that.
I don't know why they didn't write that down.
Was this a theme of your conversation with Mr. Kowalski where he was expressing to you that he was supportive of having Maya treated at all children's?
Yes, that did come up.
We're beyond that, leading on this stuff.
That question was sustained the.
Do you recall during your conversations with Mr. Kowalski whether he made other statements to you regarding his either consent or lack of consent at keeping Maya at all children's?
That's my recollection, but I might need to.
Again, to just answer.
Overall, you can answer that one.
That's my recollection, but I would probably need to refer to the transcript to know specifically what those statements were when they occurred in the conversation.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd like to publish into evidence, publish to the jury what's been previously marked as 3121B.
You may.
My bigger question is why would a parent go to these extremes?
Because I'm told this is the last resort.
But you're saying it's not. And this is not, all it would have taken was a question from you somewhere along the line that are we doing the right thing? Maybe we should go back and talk to another doctor, do something more conventional, not something that's likely to kill her.
I'm effective of keeping her here. That's what I told you. And if they think something else, I'm supportive of keeping her here and looking.
Detective Graham having her.
Okay, I was listening to this in the car and I had to rewind it because I thought to myself, is this a conversation between husband and wife? Is this his conversation with Beata? And then I didn't hear an accent for the female voice. And then I realized it was a conversation between the detective and the witness that she's interviewing or interrogating. And I found her tone to be somewhat inappropriate. So much so that we're going to rewind that and listen to that again.
That's my recollection, but I would probably need to refer to the transcript to know specifically what those statements were when they occurred in the conversation.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd like to publish into evidence, publish to the jury what's been previously marked as 3121B.
You may.
My bigger question is why would a parent go to these extremes?
Because I'm told this is the last resort.
But you're saying it's not. And this is not, all it would have taken was a question from you somewhere along the line that are we doing the right thing? Maybe we should go back and talk to another doctor, do something more conventional, not something that's likely to kill her.
I'm effective of keeping her here, that's what I told you. And if they think something else, I'm supportive of keeping her here and looking.
Detective Graham, having heard that audio, does that refresh your recollection as to the conversation that you were having with Mr. Kowalski?
Yes, it does.
Was there a time?
Okay. Peter Pranzo, retired law enforcement. He agrees it's unprofessional. I don't know. I just thought that that tone was very, yeah. Dee, her tone says, don't you dare say anything different. I thought she sounds like she's talking to a family member or friend. I found it to be very, just bizarre.
Time during the conversation that you had with Mr. Kowalski where he indicated to you any concerns with Mrs. Kowalski's behavior?
Yes.
Okay, and what types of concerns was he expressing to you?
She wasn't being cooperative with the things that were being requested. He stated he was appalled by some of her behavior.
Your Honor, I'd like to publish to the jury what's in evidence as 3121C.
But it's just your wife's behavior is very concerning to me.
Sure, and it's getting worse right now. Just, she don't want to cooperate.
Along those lines, Detective Graham, did Mr. Kowalski discuss with you during this time that any concerns he had with Mrs. Kowalski following the rules?
He had expressed there had been some interference on her part with him trying to communicate with Maya. Yes.
Okay. This interview is on November 17th of 2016. Maya has been in this hospital since October 7th of 2016. So it's been about a month that Beata has not been allowed to have any contact with her daughter other than the occasional monitored phone call. I think I'd be going a lot more nuts than she was. So I find this to be not very revelatory. This is not like the big smoking gun, like, oh, Beata doesn't want to agree. Okay, well, we're gonna arrest all of you.
Your Honor, I would like to publish to the jury what's been received into evidence as 3121D.
Yes.
And I'm not
Because I know Mom talked to her once, and that was supervised. And I guess she got shut down many times because she was falling off.
She could.
And then she told me what she said. I said, you can't do that. Don't talk about medical stuff. Why are you talking about the lawyer? Why are you doing?
Why can't she control her? If her daughter is her main priority and why can't she follow the rules and do what she's being told?
Exactly.
Why can't she just follow the rules and do what she's told? Do you remember the phone call that we listened to between Maya and her mom? When Maya was telling her mom was just saying, how are you doing? How's everything? And there were so many topics that were off limits that Beata was not allowed to ask her about. She was not allowed to ask her daughter about medication. She was not allowed to ask her about the medical treatment. She was not allowed to ask her about how they were treating her in the hospital. But Maya did say one thing like, I can't pull my pants up anymore. And Beata said, oh, when did that happen, honey? When did that start happening? And she goes, I don't know. I don't really know. TBH, right? Which means like, to be honest, that's what kids say. And, parents of kids that age know that TBH means to be honest. Well, the social worker did not like that answer and had to steer Beata back into submission. Not allowed to talk about that, Mom. Not allowed to talk about that. Move on, move on. It's, that's in another stream. I'll link the playlist below.
During your conversation with Mr. Kowalski, do you remember any conversations with him about him noticing any differences in Maya's behavior, whether he was present or mom was present?
Yes, he expressed that there were times he would be home alone and there would be no complaints of pain or discomfort. And when the mother would come home, the child would immediately be in pain.
Your Honor, I'd like to publish to the jury what's been received into evidence. One moment. As 3121I.
Okay.
When nobody else was in the room but Maya and the staff, she acted completely normal. When mom would walk in the room, she was instantly.
I heard that many times.
There's no other explanation
Well, I-
for that.
Yeah, I noticed it too with myself being home, and then mom comes home from work,
And all of a sudden she's back.
so it changes.
So you're at home, your guys are doing well, and playing.
No complaints about me.
No complaints
But
about
then when
that.
mom gets home,
She's
baby,
okay.
During your conversation with Mr. Kowalski, did he express to you any of his intentions in terms of his home living situation with his wife if Maya were to come home?
Yes, he had offered to me that given the opportunity to bring Maya home, that he would have Beata move out.
That he would have his wife move out. Can we hear that sound clip? Are they going to play that sound clip? Is there a sound clip for that? And I submit to you, well, we know how smart the jury is because we've been listening to them ask their questions. That is one difference about Florida is that this judge allows the jury to ask questions of the witness. These jury questions are incredibly well-reasoned. They're incredibly intelligent. They're asking questions to things we all want to know. And you'll see when the jury asks questions of this witness, clearly one of the 6 members on the jury is either law enforcement or retired law enforcement. Another one is definitely in the medical field. They are very well-versed in this case. They are paying attention. And you'll see after their questions today, you let me know which way you think that they are leaning.
If I could publish to the jury what's been received into evidence as 3121G.
I thought you were gonna answer the question, if Maya was released from here and she was gonna be brought back home, if I would have had my wife move out.
That's my next question.
That would be absolutely on our feet.
One moment.
I don't know if this witness has testified, but he spoke to a child advocate at some point who worked for the state or the county, or maybe it was his attorney or one of his attorneys who said to him, Jack, you just got to follow the rules. You just got to follow the rules. You got to do what they want you to do. And that's the way you're going to get her out of there. And once you get her out of there, you never, ever, ever bring him back. Never bring her back. That's the only way to win this game. So if this happened after she's already been in state custody for a month, she's been in the hospital for 5 weeks. Maybe he's just telling this detective what he thinks she wants to hear. It may not necessarily be true, but the parent advocate said that. Thanks, Nancy. Did this witness testify, the parent advocate? I know I saw it. I think it might be in the documentary, but if you can think of the witness's name that said that, I'd like to play that testimony another time. At this point, he knows what he's got to say to get her out of there. He doesn't realize that she wants to arrest him. That's Jack, for those of you who don't know, Maya's dad.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions this time around.
I do have questions. There is a
Share terms with me.
there is a technique that, and were you a detective at this time?
I said I was, yes.
And how long after that were you a detective before you moved to another position?
I became a member of the civil unit, I believe, in November of 2017.
So what, about a month after this?
No, November of
Reporting.
2017.
About a year after this?
Yes.
You were no longer a detective?
No, I had chosen to leave that unit.
But at this point, you were a detective. Now, there's a technique that detectives use when they're trying to get a confession or something out of someone, and that's called flipping the accomplice. Is that not true?
I would assume so, yes.
Yeah.
I've not heard that term referred to.
What do you refer to it
As doing an interview.
Well, it's a little more than an interview, is it not?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Is it not for the purpose of getting one person that you perceive as part of the crime to testify against the other?
That can be, yes.
Right. And to do that, what you do usually is use threats of prosecution of the person you want to talk, right?
That could be possible, yes.
All right. So now, for instance, like here, like threatening Jack to let him know that you had put a father away for 10 years before, right?
I told him that, but I think that was out of context. It wasn't meant to be in that the way you're referring to it as.
Well, thank you for opening the door on that, because Mr. Anderson is not going to let go. And that is the most ridiculous answer that I have ever heard. And if you believe that, I got a bridge I want to sell you in Brooklyn. So let me just rewind that.
That what you do usually is use threats of prosecution of the person you want to talk, right?
That could be possible, yes.
All right. So now, for instance, like here, like threatening Jack to let him know that you had put a father away for 10 years before, right?
I told him that, but I think that was out of context. It wasn't meant to be in that the way you're referring to it as.
Just how far out of context can it be to tell someone in Jack Kowalski's position, with you there in that room with a badge and a gun, that you would put somebody else away for 10 years impliedly for this?
My recollection of explaining that circumstance to him was that the parents thought they were doing the correct thing at the time they committed the crime and loved their child and had the outcome was not necessarily what they intended, but that there was a punishment for that. That is my recollection of the reasoning why I brought that case up.
Well, that was some word salad. That was some really fully tossed word salad. Did anybody understand a thing she just said? Trying to talk her way out of that paper bag? What other way could you possibly mean that when you tell a person that you're interrogating, I put another father in jail for 10 years for exactly what you're doing? She could have just said, yeah, there is a tactic like that. Yeah, that's what I was doing. But no, because she's the smartest person in the room.
You were reminding him that even though he loved his child, he was doing the right thing, he might in fact end up spending 10 years behind bars. That was the purpose.
I was explaining to him that even a loving parent thinking they're doing the right thing, not knowing what the end result could be punished for their actions. Yes.
I noticed that you used a couple times the phrase, the opportunity to, as in the opportunity to meet. Do you recall that? Your testimony right here in front of the jury just a couple minutes ago.
If you're saying that's what I said, I
Okay.
don't remember using those exact words, but
Right,
if you're saying, that's
We
fine.
do. We remember it.
And also the opportunity to speak privately, right?
Yes.
Okay. But that's not exactly the way it went down, is it?
that a question?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a question.
Okay, that wasn't the way it went down, was it?
I asked if we could speak privately. We were given a private room to sit down and speak.
You were given a private room because the hospital knew you were coming, obviously, right?
Your Honor, just to briefly approach on this issue.
She doesn't take him down to the cafeteria. She doesn't take him down to, the main lobby of the hospital. She doesn't take him to, the family. She gets a private room, like an interrogation room, right? Did it have like the two-way glass or opportunity? I was giving him the opportunity, as if she's as if that's a positive thing. She's giving him a choice, the opportunity. Very careful choice of words until she doesn't want you to understand what she's saying, and then she uses the word salad, right? Watch your eyes, Kimberly says.
You had discussed coming over there. Thank you, Judge. So, you had discussed coming over there before with Sally Smith, had you not?
I don't recall talking to I don't recall talking to Sally Smith specifically about coming to the hospital.
Was she or was she not the main source of your information about this?
Your Honor, I'm okay if he wants to go there, but
That question you can ask, but
Dr. Sally Smith was the main source for the medical information I was receiving. The custody and DCF side and family court side was through the Department of Children and Families and supervised visitation.
So now, relying heavily on Sally Smith's information, you went to the hospital, and who did you meet there?
Just to clarify, the information I received from DCF and Sally Smith was why I went to the hospital. I probably had contacted someone with the hospital to facilitate getting us a room where we could speak privately.
Okay. And then Kathy Beatty met you at some point from the time you came into the lobby to the time you got on the elevator to go up to the PICU, correct?
That's my recollection, is that she's the one who facilitated getting the room.
All right. So you and Miss Beatty rode up in the elevator, right?
I would assume so, yeah.
Yeah. And were you in uniform at that time? No, you were plain clothes.
Plain clothes.
But you did have your badge displayed,
I did.
and you had a gun.
Likely,
displayed.
yes.
Yeah, what kind of gun? A Glock? What was it?
6 hour.
A 6 hour. Okay. And so when you
It's not a 6 hour. That's what it says in the closed captioning. A 6 hour. She sounds very proud of her gun.
when the doors opened, were Jack and Maya standing there?
I
As
don't
you came
specifically
off?
recall that.
And in fact, the first time then, whether they were standing right there or close there too,
Oh, that would have been great. He wanted her to say Maya was standing there. She didn't fall for it, but that would have been great. Since she was in a wheelchair the whole time.
first time that they saw you would be with Miss Beatty, correct?
That's possible.
All right. And you got some information about this situation from Miss Beatty too. Am I true?
I had been in contact with Ms. Beatty as again, facilitating some information about.
And you've worked with Miss Smith, Sally Smith, Dr. Smith, excuse me.
why don't we
I've got a
previous.
why don't we approach?
There's the sleep machine again. She didn't bring her own bottled drink like the pink lady yesterday. I think somebody counted and said she had 3 drinks, 2 lemonade flavor and 1 raspberry. She's just getting an old styrofoam cup of water. Yeah, Lori. Seems every one of these people had a predetermined assumption of guilt without any proof or confirmation bias. They were looking for something and be damned, they were going to find it. And of course, there was Kathy Beatty. You knew she was involved. She was steering this ship.
With Miss Beatty. When we left off, you were getting off the elevator with Miss Beatty, were you not?
That sounds reasonable, yes.
Yeah. And then the hospital or someone provided a room for you. Is that right?
Yes.
And you sat down on one side of a table, a relatively small table, was it not?
I don't recall, but there was a table, yes.
Like it wasn't a gigantic conference room table. This was,
No. My recollection is like a small family waiting room.
okay, small family radio.
Or not small, but you know.
And were you positioned such that Jack went in first and then you sat down between Mr. Kowalski and the door?
I don't recall where I sat
Mm,
specifically.
right? Blocking him from leaving, perhaps? That's a great question. Goes to whether or not he felt free to leave. And she doesn't remember that part.
Okay. Then you had a badge and a gun sitting with Mr. Kowalski in a visitor room, right?
Yes.
And you told him you were going to ask him some questions, did you not?
I asked if we could talk, yes.
And one thing you did not say at the start was, oh, and I'm going to be recording you.
No, I did
you?
not.
And in fact, your phone that you recorded it on was on your purse, kind of half in and half out of your purse sitting next to you.
Generally, if I've done hundreds of recorded interviews. It is either on the table, and sometimes, yes, it might be in my bag. That specific day, based on the recording's clarity, I had reason to believe that it was on the table.
Okay. And so Jack Kowalski, for the most of this conversation, did not know you were recording him.
He didn't. The
And-
recording states that there was some conversation prior to the recording starting.
Mhm.
I don't recall telling him, but there is no right to privacy when you're talking to the police. I can record conversations as part of any criminal investigation.
Well, you knew he was represented by counsel, did you not?
I was not aware he was represented in any criminal matter.
Well,
Full stop. I call BS. It doesn't matter. Apparently this is what so was this a criminal matter or was this not a criminal matter? I thought you were just interviewing him. Not a criminal matter yet, right? You're just there to talk to the guy. You're there to talk to the guy at the direction of DCF, allegedly, or at the request of Sally Smith, which all ties into the family court case. And he has a lawyer in the family court case. How dare you say that? You didn't know he would. Is it a criminal investigation or not? Detective, make up your mind. I know. And somebody said he's running out the shot clock. These lawyers are timed and they're only given a certain amount of time for the trial, which is something that I've never had to deal with. I don't know if this is a Florida thing or is this kind of judge thing. They're only given a certain amount of hours per side. But this is a very good use of his time. So, in my opinion, hear that again.
for the most of this conversation, did not know you were recording him.
He didn't. The
And-
recording states that there was some conversation prior to the recording starting.
Mhm.
I don't recall telling him, but there is no right to privacy when you're talking to the police. I can record conversations as part of any criminal investigation.
Well, you knew he was represented by counsel, did you not?
I was not aware he was represented in any criminal matter.
Well, you knew he was being represented in the matter involving his daughter there at Johns Hopkins, did you not?
He talked about being represented. We actually discussed his attorney. He never specified that he wanted to speak to his attorney, but that was the attorney representing him in family court.
Did you ever then tell him he had the right to counsel at that point?
I'm not required to.
See, because you don't believe you had him in custody yet?
I know I did not have him in custody.
And at that point, you hadn't even found a reasonable suspicion. Is that right?
I had a DCF report I had a medical staff with child protection team voicing concerns about the health and well-being of this child, with the concerns focused on the mother and her inappropriate behavior. And yes, I did have a reasonable suspicion to go and speak to him to find out what his opinion or basis was in this matter.
Full stop. The information she went in there with was all regarding this family court, juvenile proceeding, shelter hearing, taking parental rights away, stripping the parental rights, putting Maya in state custody. But she didn't think it was important to tell him that his family court lawyer could be involved in this conversation. I have a problem with this. Scott, Dennis, Peter, tell me I'm wrong.
That's what an investigation entails.
Well, would it be true that you at this point were not comfortable saying there's hang on one second.
That's right. Anything you say can and will be held against you in a court of law. Thank you, Scott. Retired law enforcement, at least 25 years on the job. She went into this thinking it was a criminal case from the start. She considered this an interrogation, not an interview. 100% in my opinion. I agree.
Judge, I need to find this. I'm going to need to come back to that. Are you saying then that a reasonable citizen under these circumstances, with a detective, with a gun and a badge sitting across from him, that he wouldn't feel just a little bit intimidated?
Sustain.
And in asking your questions, you used what we term leading questions, did you not?
I did ask him some leading questions, but he was very forthcoming with offering his own information that I did not ask for.
And your voice that we heard here was fairly aggressive about challenging him. Is that right?
There was probably a point later in the conversation where I started to pressure him a little more as far as why this was occurring. I was questioning as far as why wasn't he asking more questions? Yes.
The point was, for virtually every single one of those recordings, you suggested or told him the answer to the question you wanted.
That is incorrect.
True?
I would disagree.
Did you not bring up in every one of those, isn't it true that, or why didn't you do this?
You would have to refer to the entire recording, but that is not my recollection.
And so then, having done this, did you really expect Jack Kowalski to disagree with you?
During the interview, I told him right at the beginning, if he was not comfortable answering a question, he didn't have to. I explained to him that if I spoke anything incorrect, that he should correct me, and he did. And
he's going to correct her? She's sitting there with a gun and a badge in between him and the door, surreptitiously recording their conversation on her iPhone. That's a terrible freeze frame. I couldn't have picked a worse one for her. And you expect him to correct you if you said anything incorrect? Can we hear that part of the recording where you told him that? Because I'd like the receipt on that.
I thanked him for that. It was not a conversation that I was, just giving him question after question. We were having a conversation.
He was very
forthcoming. I thanked him for sharing information with me. I explained to him that my position, and then he would explain back what his position was.
Mhm. And you did this, of course, before you went on record in the recording, did you not?
That would not be true.
You did not put it in the first part of the recording, did you?
The first part of the recording was maybe a few minutes. I went to double check to make sure. I'm sure there's nothing worse than doing an entire recorded interview and finding out your recorder didn't work or wasn't activated. So that,
I mean, yeah, because you imagine doing an entire interview and then finding out later that you forgot to hit record on your iPhone. I mean, there's really nothing worse than that. Oh, I can think of a couple things worse. Like falsely accusing a mother of NBP and stripping her of her parental rights and taking her daughter away from her when she's 10 years old and in the hospital with the most painful disease known to medicine. I can think of a couple of things that are worse than that. Detective. This jury's not going to like this, in my opinion.
Go ahead, sorry.
I'm sorry, but I refer later into the interview that I had told him he was there voluntarily. The door was unlocked. He was free to leave. That was expressed because I had told him that prior to the recording beginning.
Prior to the recording
So
beginning.
he just stayed there because he wanted to.
I've done hundreds of interviews of all different types of parties, and cooperation is not unusual.
Oh
And in
my
this
goodness.
by a
Oh
husband-
my goodness. I've done hundreds of interviews and every single person stays voluntarily. I never tell anybody. I've never I've never Mirandized one single person because that's how little I care about their rights. When I'm walking in there looking for a criminal act, and I just get them to be so forthcoming with me while I'm sitting there with my badge and my gun. This is like a Saturday Night Live skit. Rachel Dratch could play a really great Detective Graham, and I'm going to request it. We're just going to have to listen to that again.
Went to double check to make sure. I'm sure there's nothing worse than doing an entire recorded interview and finding out your recorder didn't work or wasn't activated. So that,
Go ahead, sorry.
I'm sorry, but I refer later into the interview that I had told him he was there voluntarily. The door was unlocked. He was free to leave. That was expressed because I had told him that prior to the recording beginning.
So he just stayed there because he wanted to.
I've done hundreds of interviews of all different types of parties, and cooperation is not unusual.
And in this by a husband against a wife, that's been your experience?
I worked child abuse investigations for 5.5 years, and parents are always involved in these investigations.
Well, this is a little different investigation, was it not? This wasn't one where Maya Kowalski had bruises on her, was it?
No, this was a very complicated
Right.
investigation.
And at that point, you had no evidence that Beata Kowalski had any psychological or psychiatric problems.
Mr. Anderson, why don't you welcome forward?
Wow. Scott, you don't record an interview, you record an interrogation. I'm going to read to you all the comments from law enforcement in the chat that are applicable here. She was trying to make an arrest based upon her interrogation. Peter says, big difference between an interview and an interrogation. Record or have signed a Miranda sheet. Oh, thank you, Color and Chat with Joanna, for your $20 super chat. That's awesome. Just cause. Thank you. No, thank you for being a supporter. I appreciate you so much. Peter again says he's correct, and she should have been given Miranda or stop the questions. Lawyer. Yep. Ooh, Lauren, this is interesting. I saw this woman's police report from this time period, and she was contacted by Sally Smith and then met with Sally Smith at the hospital. Lauren, do you have a copy of that somewhere? Can you email it to me? I have a new email for my fans. Ready? It's called fanbase@mlittlelaw.com. Write it down if you want to ever email me with show ideas, you have information that you want to share. I always read them. I don't always respond because I have 5 kids. You know, my life is busy, but I love to hear from you guys. Fanbase@mlittlelaw.com.
You know,
Here's another great comment. Dare to be different. Jack was in a difficult situation. If he didn't cooperate with the interview, that would have been reported to social services and could have affected his chances of getting Maya back. Yes, of course. And he was smart enough to know that. He had to say kind of what she wanted to hear, maybe, but hello, Busy B72. Thank you for the super chat. Can Maya go back on the stand to refute others? Yes, they can recall her. And they're probably going to have to do that on a couple of points. I was going through Jack's testimony today. I didn't have time to go through all of it, but I was trying to find the part where he was testifying about his interview with her. If anybody knows what date that was, I think he testified on October 2nd and 3rd, but there was so much testimony. I couldn't get through it all, and I haven't watched it before, so I could not find that portion. Alessandro Pinto, I love you, Scarlett's mom. Oh, I love you, and Scarlett loves you too. Thanks for watching. She doesn't look happy to be there, does she?
Oh, that is for the child. As a general,
Nice tie.
reviewed Maya Kowalski.
as a general rule, we do not interview the child. That is for the child protection team to do.
The first part of that question was cut off, but it was, did you interview Maya Kowalski? No, that's for the child protection team to do.
And you never met Beata Kowalski,
I did not.
the witness.
For the jury's benefit, can you tell them whether you told Mr. Kowalski whether he was free to leave at any time?
I did.
Did you actually remind Mr. Kowalski that you were out of your jurisdiction?
Several times, yes.
And what does that mean to the jury when you're out of your jurisdiction?
I only have
Peter, Scott, Dennis, tell me, she's saying she's out of her jurisdiction. So apparently a couple of people pointed out to me that in Florida, the sheriff's department is run by the county and the police is the city. So here in New York, or at least on Long Island, isn't the sheriff's department in charge of transporting prisoners and maybe serving warrants, and the police do kind of everything else? So it's a little bit different here, I think. You guys can correct me on that. But tell me what you think the significance of this part of her testimony is, where she says she told him she was out of her jurisdiction.
For the jury's benefit, can you tell them whether you told Mr. Kowalski whether he was free to leave at any time?
I did.
Did you actually remind Mr. Kowalski that you were out of your jurisdiction?
Several times, yes.
And what does that mean to the jury when you're out of your jurisdiction?
I only have arrest powers within the jurisdiction of Sarasota County. And he was a fireman. They also deal with jurisdiction. So I think he probably understood that meaning.
Firemen also deal with jurisdiction? They don't arrest people. In fact, around here, a lot of engine companies, as they call them in FDNY, are called in to assist on big fires. So I don't know that she's making her comparison here in the correct fashion. Because Jack was a retired firefighter, he would know that she only had arrest powers within Sarasota County? I say no, he wouldn't know that, but if that's your story and you're sticking to it. Did she tell him that he was free to leave at any time? Is that on the tape recording? I don't think so.
you were asked some questions about whether you were leading him into answers. The jury heard one of the clips about Mr. Kowalski having his wife live out. Was that something that you asked, or did he volunteer that to you?
He volunteered that amongst other information, yes.
At the end of the interview, do you recall if Mr. Kowalski actually gave you his cell phone number?
He did, and he also offered to let me come to his home if I wanted to talk to him further.
Oh, so he's now, wait, you're saying that he knows okay. He knows that you're outside of your jurisdiction at the hospital. So he knows that you can't arrest him at the hospital, and yet he's inviting you to his home. He is inviting you to his home so that, hey, I know you can't arrest me here at the hospital. So, hey, why don't you come over? We'll have some coffee and, you could arrest me there since that's where I live in Sarasota County. And, that's your jurisdiction. So, are you effing kidding me? Like, that could be some of the worst testimony I've heard in this entire case. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to pick, but that could be some of the worst. Yeah, Scott, she's going to explain now why she was there outside of her jurisdiction. So here we go.
Mr. Anderson.
And if you decided to arrest, first, do you think Jack Kowalski understood exactly where your ability to arrest or not arrest was?
Speculation.
I told him I was out of my jurisdiction, and I believe I told him he was not under arrest.
That is not exactly my question. My question is, he would not know unless he was a police officer or in law enforcement where you could arrest or where you could not arrest. True?
Objection, speculation.
Sustained on that one.
I feel like I need some popcorn for this.
And if Jack Kowalski was not there, something happened to him, and Beata Kowalski, something happened to her, the child would then go into what?
Objection,
That's not-
speculation.
Sustained.
She doesn't care about the objection. She's powering through with her testimony, whether there's an objection or not. And I'll bet this is not the first time she's testified, but she hears the word objection and she just keeps plowing through because she wants to say what she wants to say.
Something happened to him, and Beata Kowalski, something happened to her, the child would then go into what?
Objection,
That's not-
speculation.
Sustained.
Foster care is the answer.
Further, Mr. Astor.
No, thank you, Your Honor.
You heard the jury. Are there any questions?
Oh, yeah. Oh, the jury has some questions. All right, petrified. They're very careful to use the word interview the whole time until the jury comes in like a wrecking ball with interrogation in their questions. Oh, we'll see if that happens. Ooh, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. Carmela Epbright says Sally Smith was a doctor at the hospital. She started investigating cases because her friends called before CFS assigned her to the case. Yes, that's what our friend, I think Lauren said that. She's got the report on that. The hospital should have created a wall between her roles. I agree. That's awesome, Robbie, that you gifted those memberships. I can't see for some reason on StreamYard who got them, just so that you guys know it's random. If somebody gifts memberships, they are assigned randomly, but you need to opt into that. And it's somewhere in the stream where you need to click maybe at the top of the chat. Oh, Lauren getting in there with the email. Love you, girl. Is that legal, recording without saying you do? I'd like to know that too, my law enforcement friends. And because remember, there was one recording that was not allowed into evidence it was a recording that Beata made at Dr. Kirkpatrick's office. And Dr. Kirkpatrick was questioned and he said that he did not give consent.
Jury deliberation. Do not discuss this case amongst yourselves. Do not do any investigation.
He did not give consent and therefore it was not allowed in. So I don't know if that has to do with just audio recordings, if that has to do with video recordings only, or if law enforcement has an exception to that. Not sure. If anybody knows the Florida law on that, let me know. But Recovery Addict did a great job on filling us in on what these lawyers were saying, and it was really interesting. So if you have a chance to go watch that, don't go watch it now, but watch it at another time when I'm not on. There's room for everybody on YouTube. There's so many great creators that I don't think it's a competition. I think everybody should lift everybody else up. So I'm all for it. This is a long one. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. That's how many questions they have. They are furiously writing these questions down. And then the judge has to go over each of the questions with the lawyers outside the presence of the jury, outside the presence of the witness, to determine whether he's going to allow these questions to be asked. So far. And also the shot clock is not ticking during the time they're going over the questions, nor is it ticking during sidebars. So just keep that in mind too. I know some people are getting very concerned about the shot clock. Come on. Here we go.
With the lawyers. And so, ma'am, I've got some questions from the jury for you. And just as a reminder, you will have all of what's actually in evidence with you, but you won't have what is not in evidence. Did you show Jack that you were carrying a gun?
It would be normal for me to be wearing my badge and my gun on a
That's the
daily
question.
basis when I'm at work. Yes.
The next part of that question.
That
was
wasn't
he
the
aware
question.
You had your gun with you.
It would have, and my gun.
Jack with you, but you won't have what is not in evidence. Did you show Jack that you were carrying a gun?
Did you show Jack that you were carrying a gun?
It would be normal for me to be wearing my badge and my gun on a daily basis when I'm at work. Yes.
The next part of that question, was he aware you had your gun with you?
It would have been holstered on my hip as part of my uniform that I wear every day during every investigation.
Right. And if you're wearing that tunic type cardigan that you have on today, and the gun was on your hip, would it have been concealed? She's not wearing the police uni that we see with the blue pants that are with a shirt that's tucked in and a belt where the gun is holstered on your side and it's clearly visible. I'm betting she was wearing a tunic kind of cardigan and it was covered. That's just what I'm thinking, and I'm sure they're thinking the same thing.
Do you remember if you gave Jack your business card before or after you met with him?
At the very beginning of the conversation, he requested my card and I offered it to him, and that was recorded.
Oh, he had to ask for it.
When you say this conversation was voluntary, did you tell Jack there would be consequences if he did not speak to you?
No, I would not tell someone that. He was under no obligation whatsoever to talk to me.
Boy, she opened the door on that
If
one.
you were out
Wait.
of your jurisdiction, why were you interviewing him?
Because we were contacted by the DCF office in Sarasota County, and the family lived within Sarasota County jurisdiction, and that's why I was instructed and got involved. It would not be unusual for me to go to All Children's Hospital if the child was transported there and something had occurred in Sarasota County.
Did Jack inform you of his service? I assume that means of his fire department service.
He told me he was retired. I don't recall exactly retired from what, but he made a comment that he was a medic.
But didn't you just say earlier that you knew when you talked to him that he was retired firefighter and therefore you thought he knew what outside your jurisdiction meant? So, which is it, detective?
Did he demonstrate from that service that he possessed a knowledge of his rights as they pertain to your interview and his lack of requirement to participate?
There was no discussion about that.
Did he? Oh, I'm sorry.
I just want to say he appeared willing to converse with me.
Did he mention his legal counsel?
He mentioned hiring Deborah Salisbury, and that would have been part of the family court process, which is a separate process from my criminal investigation.
Really? Really? So you probably know Deborah Salisbury. You probably could have gotten her on the phone. Clearly, you know who she is because you remembered her name, and you've probably had to deal with her a lot on a lot of different cases in family court. Cases that are sent to you by the DCF, which you already said they refer this case to you, and Sally Smith, Dr. Sally Smith, talked to you about this case. But now you're saying that's a totally separate process from this criminal investigation? The jury's really smart, you guys. They're not going to fall for this. I'm telling you right now.
In your experiences, do leaders of, quote, police parallel services, end quote, paramedics / firefighters usually have more or less knowledge of their civic rights than average citizens?
I would not have an answer to that.
Did Jack demonstrate any nonverbal behaviors that made you feel the discussion was not wanted?
No.
Were you there to, quote, get to an anticipated conclusion, end quote, or, quote, to seek the truth, end quote?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, we got to listen to that again.
Were you there to, quote, get to an anticipated conclusion, end quote, or, quote, to seek the truth, end quote?
Confirmation bias. They're already thinking it.
Can I expound on that answer?
No.
I think you should answer the question that was actually asked.
Could you repeat the question?
Were you there to, quote, get to an anticipated conclusion, end quote, or, quote, to seek the truth, end quote?
I was conducting an investigation to get to the truth and matter of the fact.
Did you inform Jack the reason for the interview?
I don't recall the exact verbiage, but I would have expressed there were some concerns. We'd received reports from Department of Children and Family, and I was following up those reports.
You said it.
Wait, so were you following up the reports of the Department of Children and Family, or were you initiating a criminal investigation? What are you doing here? You can't use it as a shield and a sword, ma'am. You can't say, I'm not here on behalf of DCF, so that has nothing to do with the family court proceeding, and therefore you don't need to talk to your lawyer because that's your lawyer in the family court case. I'm only here on the criminal court case. You can't, it doesn't work like that.
It was probably your iPhone that you recorded your interrogation of Jack. Where was your phone during the interrogation?
Like I said, during my first test, the initial testimony, because of the clarity, it very well, I mean, it sounded clear. It was on the table. Obviously, I sounded louder in it. It might have been sitting next to me. But I don't have, right at this moment, that was many, many years ago, I don't have a clear recollection. That's
Law enforcement. If you did record an interview, would you also take some contemporaneous notes? Would you write anything down? Would you say, what time you started the interrogation and what time you ended the interrogation? Would you have that in your notes? I know you guys keep copious notes. I know you guys are sticklers for detail. And we saw Tori Nias and her attention to detail. In fact, she said that Maya had OCD because she organized her shoes and put them underneath the couch. We didn't even talk about that part of her testimony last night because when I was rewatching it today to go through the chat, I said, oh my God, she said that Maya had OCD. And that's why that woman was judgy as all get out. But this one was many years ago and she has no recollection.
Would not be unusual for that to happen.
Was Jack,
I don't even
To
remember what the
me,
question was.
On
Sorry.
the table, 'cause
Oh, where was the phone?
like I
during
said,
the
during my
interview?
first the initial testimony, because of the clarity, it very well, I mean, it sounded clear. It was on the table. Obviously, I sounded louder in it. It might have been sitting next to me. But I don't have, right at this moment, that was many, many years ago, I don't have a clear recollection. Would not be unusual for that to happen.
was Jack given the notice the meeting was being recorded or to refuse the recording of the interrogation?
Well,
So
it wasn't an interrogation. It was
the jury is calling it an interrogation, not an interview. Thanks, Deb Galloway. That was at the perfect time that you put that comment in there, and we're going to just rewind that question. That's why I think one of the members, and I think somebody told me that on one of Recovery Addict streams, one of the questions says, as law enforcement, I know this. So I think we definitely know that one of the jurors is either on the job or retired from the job.
be unusual for that to happen.
Was Jack given the notice the meeting was being recorded or to refuse the recording of the interrogation?
Well, it wasn't an interrogation. It was an interview.
Hmm.
And no, there's no right to privacy when you're talking to the police, whether that's in the back of a patrol car, in a hospital, at their house. It would be common for me to record an investigatory interview.
In a yes, no, does the recording of the interrogation have a recorded opening with names, date, location, and consent to record?
It did not.
If not, then is it your usual modus operandi to record interrogations without the knowledge of the interviewee?
Again, modus operandi. That's a law enforcement term or a legal term. Could be a lawyer on the jury too. That would be an interesting jury. Law enforcement, a lawyer, a doctor.
It would not be unusual to do that, no.
And members of the jury, those are the questions I'm going to be able to ask, and I cannot ask the other questions. Defense, is there any follow-up?
Just one. Detective Graham, why do you make the recording?
It is the most accurate account of what is being said for both myself and for the person I'm interviewing.
Thank you.
Not if it's in your purse and you
Any further
can't
follow-up?
even hear the recording.
I found the passage. Now I gotta push.
Thank you, Russell. Thank you, Sarah, for the super sticker. Give Maya a cake. Sarah, I did get your messages. I just haven't had a chance to read them yet, but I will. Carmela coming in there with the comedy. Don't worry, I can't arrest you. I'm out of my jurisdiction. You are totally safe. Nevertheless, would you please speak loudly and clearly into my iPhone? If you can make me laugh during this stream, because sometimes we gotta laugh, you guys. We cover true crime and horrible cases like this of medical CA, and sometimes we have to laugh. We're not laughing at the situation. This is about Maya and her family, and about Maya not having her mom anymore. It's really sad.
Did you tell Jack Kowalski that you don't care, that you would put he and his wife in jail tomorrow if it means Maya gets better?
If you're saying that's what the quote is, then yes.
Because I see you got the receipt there, counselor. So
And
can't
did
deny it.
you remind him of what good it would do to Maya or Kyle if both their parents were put in jail?
Objection, argumentative, mistakes.
Overruled.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Again, and we said this last night with Tori Neas, that could you repeat the question, please, is always the way that the person tries to get more time to formulate their answer. And I got to think of something quick because I don't have a good enough answer in my head yet. So please repeat the question.
Did you tell them or ask Jack what good it would do if Maya or Kyle, or if both their parents were put in jail?
I'd have to look at the, if you're telling me that was the transcript, but I'd have to see the transcript itself. Yes.
Oh, great. Here, take a look because then we can get it all in, maybe.
Mr. Anderson, can you share with me what you shared with us?
Yeah, she was waiting for that objection. Didn't come. Hit the like button, everyone. Thanks, Lita Legalese. Don't forget to hit the like button, guys. It's fast and free.
Yes, this was at the very end of the conversation. I see where the quote is. Yes.
And so, what did you tell him?
Now she got to read it.
Do you want me to read the blue highlighted area?
You don't
Yeah,
have to
please
read
do.
it, but let me just ask you again. You were telling Jack Kowalski, you were giving him an opportunity because, and you ask him again, what good does it do if Maya or Kyle have both their parents put in jail?
That was what was said in the transcript. I was,
But opportunity, another
I
opportunity.
forget what was the question. If you could go back.
Yeah.
You answered it.
I did. Okay.
Yeah.
Anything further?
Yes, briefly, Ron. Mr. Anderson showed you a page from what looks to be page 168 of the transcript. right?
Yes.
That conversation that he's referring to came after all of the statements that you and Jack had that we've published to this jury, correct?
Yes, I recall this was at the very end, and that I was expressing to him, because he had expressed to me during this conversation that he was protective, he was encouraging, he was being the protective parent. And I was just expressing it doesn't do any good for both parents to be in jail. It doesn't do any good.
Well, let's explore that really briefly since
Yeah, let's explore that. That was your parting shot to him as you walked out the door. You know, doesn't do any good for both parents to be in jail. Because like she said earlier, she put another father in jail for 10 years. So you better watch out. I know what I'm doing.
you brought it up. Were those comments made as encouragement to Mr. Kowalski to be protective of Maya?
Encouragement.
Yes, because that is what he had conveyed to me during the course of our entire interview.
And
That he would do anything, and even said he would go to jail tomorrow if he was responsible.
So you offered.
And the comment you made was not about
If he
your
was
desire to
responsible for what?
separate them.
Hold
It was-
on, stop. I can't even. Officers, sergeants, is encouragement a tactic? Encouraging a father to just turn himself in and go to jail if he knew that he was responsible for what? Exactly. All right. Okay. Yeah. You were being encouraging.
Jack had that we've published to this jury, correct?
Yes, I recall this was at the very end,
And
and that I was expressing to him, because he had expressed to me during this conversation that he was protective, he was encouraging, he was being the protective parent. And I was just expressing it doesn't do any good for both parents to be in jail. It doesn't do any good.
Well, let's explore that really briefly since you brought it up. were those comments made as encouragement to Mr. Kowalski to be protective of Maya?
Yes, because that is what he had conveyed to me during the course of our entire interview.
And
That he would do anything, and even said he would go to jail tomorrow if he was responsible.
Was that on the tape? If he was responsible for what? He would go to jail tomorrow if he was responsible for what? Oh, I hope Anderson gets up and does a little recross on this, because this is like tasty. This is a tasty morsel of testimony right here. Is that on the recording?
right, and the comment you made was not about your desire to separate them. It was Mr. Kowalski telling you he's protective and that he wanted to have Maya home.
Oh,
Yes, that was his ultimate goal. Was
dude, you cannot
At
rehabilitate her.
no time in your interview did you ever threaten to arrest him, did you?
No.
Okay.
Overruled, can you answer that
You
question?
can answer.
No, in fact, at some point during the conversation, I think I said, "You're not under arrest."
Oh,
And you reiterated to Mr. Kowalski at least twice during the interview that he was not under arrest and he was free to leave. Is that
Yes.
mhm.
fair? Thank you.
So you think it's encouraging to say, and frankly, I don't care, I'll put you and your wife in jail tomorrow if it meant Maya gets better? That was encouraging to him.
Attaboy.
Is that right?
I was stating that my ultimate focus is the safety and well-being of the child. That is my goal as an investigator. And if that meant that I had to take action to protect the child from her parents, that is exactly what I would do.
Or it meant to let him know that if he had anything to add, he better add it right now, or you would consider taking him to jail, right?
I would disagree.
And didn't he say throughout he did not believe that Beata would ever harm her children?
I believe he said that he believed she would take the child back to get more dangerous treatments that we were trying to protect the child from.
That's not my question, ma'am.
Well, that
Didn't
told
she
me that
say-
he believed that she might.
Ma'am,
Pardon me.
answer the question he asked and only the question he asked.
Yes, sir. Okay, could you repeat the question, please?
Didn't he tell you at least twice that he did not believe Beata would do anything to harm their children?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for answering the question,
Members of the jury,
detective.
seeing none, may this witness speak. Oh. Okay, members of the jury, okay, let me try to do it real quick.
Hey, Cheryl. Congratulations on becoming a new member. Thank you. Welcome. We're going to have a lot of fun here. It's already a lot of fun, isn't it, you guys? Like we're just hanging out with a bunch of friends on a Sunday night. Last night was a fun Saturday night, too. Thanks, you guys. Okay. And they have more questions because, the jury is very, very on top of this.
And the question is, did you talk to him, being Jack Kowalski, again over the next few months?
No.
Members of the jury, that's the only question of this.
She
second.
never talked to him again. What was the date of that interview? Interrogation? November 17th. Wouldn't be until January 7th at that court hearing where the judge denied Beata a hug from Maya. That Beata went home and took her own life that night. And it was a week later that Maya was finally released to the custody of her father. Out of state custody because, oops, we were wrong, sorry. In Beata's mind, that was the only way her daughter was going to be released from that hospital. Because remember, she came over here from communist Poland when she was 16 years old. That's where she's coming from. Agree with it or not, that's the only thing that she thought would free her daughter. And they put her in that position, in my opinion, by setting this chain of events in motion. to the chat. Sweet one. I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact that she was out on a call without backup, no partner, no other officer with jurisdiction. WTF. Yep. Hey, Peter, Miranda or not, record or not cross the line. It's all meaningless until you wind up on the stand. Then you lose. Oh, good. See, and look, I 100% back the blue. You guys know that. I am a frequent guest and co-host on Duty Ron. That's where a lot of you guys know me from. And I started off, with police on the off the cuff. I have law enforcement in my family, and I 100% back the blue. And as do, my moderators who are former law enforcement, but I will call out a bad cop, just like I did here on Long Island with Jimmy Burke and the whole Long Island serial killer investigation being bungled for the past 13 years. And I'm glad to see, Peter, that you agree with me on that as well. Yes. And after this, or whenever this was, Deanna, thank you for bringing this up. Shapiro, who is one of the defense attorneys, stated that there are a couple of jurors that seem hostile. And they were discussing this, and this is what I learned from listening to Recovery Addict during when they were talking about the jury questions. And Shapiro was saying things to the judge like, listen, judge, obviously this is a hostile question and this jury is getting hostile. At least one juror is incredibly hostile. And, blah, 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 blah. You shouldn't ask the questions. And the judge, to his credit, was like, I don't think this is a hostile question at all. What's interesting about being an attorney trying a case where the jury is asking questions is which way they're going. By their questions what they want to know, which way they're leaning, whether you should get out your checkbook and settle this case on either side, right? Because if they're totally leaning towards the defense, the plaintiff's attorney is like, oh my God, I better get this thing settled because we're going to lose and we're going to get nothing. Or the defense attorney is saying, holy crap, they could come out of here and award $1 billion. We better get out the checkbook and, see what the plaintiff will accept at this point. But here in New York, the jury doesn't get to ask questions of the witness. So we don't get all that information. We just have to watch and look and see what we think they're thinking. But this is incredible. This is incredible information. But it's the jury they picked. They're stuck with the jury. If they let a retired and during voir dire, you can ask all kinds of questions. What books do you like to read? What are you retired? What do you do? How many people are in your family? Anybody in your family in law enforcement? Is anybody in your family a doctor? You can ask whatever you want. So they picked this jury, by the way. And there's 6 jurors, and in Florida, all 6 jurors must be unanimous on their verdict. Hey, patroness, welcome to the Mod Squad. And also, Robbie, welcome to the Mod Squad. I'm very happy to have moderators that are on the West Coast or in Australia, as Robbie is, because I'm a night owl. So I like to go on. Oh, it's already 11:15. Sorry, New Yorkers. I know that you guys might want to get to bed. So if anybody's interested in being a moderator that is on the West Coast or in a different time zone, that would be great. Just, hey, email me, fanbase@mlittlelaw.com. Dr. Tracy Jack was very happy with his ocean view interrogation room. Yeah, that's interesting. All right, I have one other thing queued up. One more short piece of testimony, and it's from the very beginning of the trial, since I think a lot of people are sort of jumping into this trial late as the public interest in this has sort of grown. This is from the woman who came to the hospital to visit Maya from the Epiphany Church. Does anybody remember her testimony? She's wearing a hat and a purple suit. Tell me if you guys want to hear that testimony, because I have it queued up and it's only about 20 minutes long. And it is very, very interesting, I think. She testified on, I think, the second day of testimony. I gotta go to the live chat. Yes. Okay. All right. I'm getting a lot of yeses in the chat. So if you guys are tired and you want to go to sleep, you're free to go. If you want to hang out with me for a little while longer, this, I think, is really interesting testimony. And if you're not already angry about what's been going on in the testimony that we've seen the past couple of days, and remember, this is the defense case that's happening now. These are their best witnesses. This is where they're supposed to swing the jury into their side of the park, And in my opinion, the ship is sinking pretty quickly. My opinion, again, let me know what you think. Yeah, Queen Olive, it is Queen Olive Ruth Ann, it is kind of late to complain about the jury. It is. Sarah, Mommy said we could stay up. Yes, you could stay up. Go get some cookies and milk. Come on back. Anybody know? Okay, so court tomorrow at 8:15 a.m. Does that mean you have to get to sleep right now? Oh, you're a night owl too, so maybe not. I don't know what time zone you're in, but I think they're gonna pull the bait and switch. I really hate to say it on Kathy, Sally Smith. I think they keep saying they're gonna have her come in, but I kind of think they're not. How could they? How could they put that woman up back on the stand again? If you haven't seen her testimony, go back and watch one of the previous lives that I did. And I think right in the title it says Dr. Sally Smith. We did Kathy Beatty that same day and one other witness. I think was that the night that we did the risk management committee chair of pediatrics. Well, that was some explosive stuff all in one night. This is a little bit not as horrifying, but if you are a religious person, you will be very offended by this. So let's see what Linda Brown has to say. I thought she was a great witness. This is during the plaintiff's case now. So the plaintiff called her to the stand on the second, I believe it was the second day of testimony, right before she testified. Dr. Wassenauer, the pediatrician, testified. And then I think the priest testified the same day as well. But let's take a listen of what she says happened in the hospital.
Good morning, just barely. Would you please state your full name for the record?
Linda Suzanne Martin, hyphenated Brown.
And you and I have spoken on a couple of occasions, but we've never met in person, have we?
Not till today, sir.
Have you been called here to testify as a member of Epiphany Church?
Not really
Are
sure.
you a member of Epiphany
Yes,
Church?
I am.
Are you also a member of the Legion of Mary?
I am.
And on occasion in 2015 and 2016, did you come to know the Kowalski family a little bit?
Through Sister Francis, yes.
Just briefly, would you give the jury background in terms of how long you've been a resident in Venice and how long you've been a member of the church?
I've been in Venice since 1997. I've been a member of the church pretty much since then because I had my daughter in 98, so we became members full time when we had her.
And the Legion of Mary, would you explain for the jury what the Legion of Mary is?
There's two groups for the Legion of Mary. The first group is the main group that meets every week. They have meetings and discussions about places to go and people to see, to help and pray for whatever their needs might be. They also have what they call a traveling Mary or a Pilgrim Mary. She's about 3 feet tall, and she comes in a big kind of black box, almost looks like a golf club kind of bag, but it's all square. You know, it's long and rectangular. And she comes in the box, and she has a beautiful crown that we put on her head. And there's a ceremony that goes with it, with a book that's inside of this box, all contained with Mary. We put rosaries around her neck, and then we pray with the family. We engage them with certain prayers that are in this book to leave the Mary with them so that they continue to do the rosary with this Pilgrim Mary who's present in their home. And she's there for healing and hope and health, and gives a lot of us Catholics a whole lot of hope.
You happen to live in Stonewalk, which is the Kowalski's neighborhood, right?
It is.
And did there come a time in 2015 when you learned that Maya had a pain condition of some sort?
Was it 2015? Gosh, it was that long ago. From Sister Francis, I was at church with Sister Francis. I used to went to daily mass when they had it then. And excuse me, I don't need to go.
You're doing fine.
Yes, I just need to breathe. Sister Francis was speaking to someone about saying prayers for the Kowalskis. And she saw me and said, they live in your neighborhood. And I said, oh, I will bring them the Traveling Mary, because Sister Francis was telling me that their daughter was ill, and my heart went out to her. So I wanted to bring Mary there so that they all could pray for the healing of their daughter.
And so did you take the Mother Mary to the Kowalski's house?
I did. That was the first time I met Beata. And I went into the home, and her sister was there from Chicago. I did not see Maya at the time. And the husband was there as well. And they were getting ready to go somewhere for some function. So normally when you come into the house with this Traveling Mary, you do the whole ceremony with the family and you set her up.
While we wait for the next question, okay?
All right. So you went to the home, you met Beata, you met Jack, Maya, you didn't see her. You brought in the Mother Mary. You explained a little bit, but what is the normal process that you go through with a family when you unbox her and set her up?
We unbox her and put her in a prominent place. And then we put the crown on her head and the rosaries around her neck. And we say the prayers that are in this particular book that comes with. And the family gets books as well, so that they can all look at the prayers so they can say them together.
And on that occasion, you already mentioned that the Kowalski family was on their way out or something. So did you go through the ceremony with them at their house, or did you leave Mother Mary and trust that they would do that?
Yeah, the audio did get lower. It's the audio, it's the stream. This is I'm watching this. This is on Tampa 13, and she must not be very close to the mic. So I'm going to talk more softly or move away from the mic, but you'll need to turn up your audio, because I don't have any of that fancy equipment that some other YouTubers have with the extenders and the thing and the pushing up, pumping up the volume. I don't have that. It's just me. It's just me. I need a producer, but yeah, you'll have to turn up your audio or go back and rewatch it later and turn it up. Sorry, it's the best I can do.
I left Mary with them to trust that they would do that.
And then how long does Mother Mary typically stay in a family's home or a sick parishioner's home after you deliver her?
A week, or if she's not in need for someone else, if they need her longer, it can be extended. So the duration is who needs her next and who's waiting for her, or who needs her the most at the moment.
Did Beata and Jack appear appreciative that you were there with the Mother Mary?
Oh yes, absolutely.
And after a week, did you pick Mother Mary up or someone else?
No, sir.
Meaning someone else picked her up?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so that was in 2015. And then fast forward a little bit, sometime in 2016, you saw Maya during the 4th of July parade. Is that right?
That is correct.
Can you tell us a little bit about your interaction with the Kowalskis on the 4th of July, 2016?
Well, it was our whole neighborhood, and it was the Kowalski family and the family across the street, and we intertwined. And there was a big, huge slide. And my immediate thing I first went to do was to go see Maya, and I did. She was in her wheelchair, and I gave her a big hug. And I thought she looked so well, I thought that she could just get up out of the wheelchair any day. And I gave her a stick of huckleberry chapstick, and gave her a big hug, and just continued to be at the party. And
so typical 4th of July in your neighborhood with the parade. and you saw Maya that day. Is that right?
I did.
And then, is it true that the next time you interacted with the Kowalski family was when you got a phone call from Beata?
That is correct.
What was Beata's mental and emotional state at that point?
She was absolutely distraught.
Could you understand what she was telling you on the phone?
No, I could not, which is why I went over there to speak with her so I could try to understand what she was saying to me.
And what did you learn when you got to the Kowalski home that day?
That Maya had been taken away from Beata.
And so you resolved to do what you do and deliver the Mother Mary?
Joyce and I were bringing the Traveling Mary to Maya.
Let me ask the question.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
She's so nervous. I feel so
You're
bad
at
for
the
her.
Kowalski home. Beata's distraught. What did you decide to do to help Maya?
I went over to see Beata because she couldn't speak over the phone, and I didn't know what was wrong. And when I got there, she was crying and, snots everywhere and just so upset. And she kept saying that they took her. And I'm like, who took her? And she said the hospital took her. And I didn't understand any of that.
It's a legal basis. Is there an exception in this motion?
Excited utterance, then existing mental state.
Overrule the objection. You can finish your answer.
You were saying the hospital took her. You can continue.
And I didn't understand what she was talking about at all. I didn't understand that. So I was just sitting there with her to just, help her breathe. And then Jack came home and I left to let the two of them be together.
In the next couple of days or the following week, did you decide to then deliver Mother Mary to Maya?
Yes, we decided that we would go, we would bring her to the Traveling Mary to the hospital that Maya was in.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Just can we approach this testimony is way too bad for us. So
Your Honor. So we were beginning to discuss your decision to take Mother Mary to Maya. And you said we. Who's we?
Joyce Sacco and myself.
And who is Joyce Sacco? Is she another member of the Legion of Mary?
She is a member of the Legion of Mary.
All right. So you knew at that point that Maya was at Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital, and you made a drive up there. Can you describe a little bit the drive up there?
I drove with Joyce in her vehicle, and we just prayed the entire way. We didn't discuss anything because we didn't know anything other than we were praying to help a little girl who was sick. That's all we knew.
And you arrive at the hospital and you get up to Maya's room, and if you could describe the scene as you enter Maya's room.
I went in her room and she was sitting there crisscross applesauce, and I went over to her and she reached up to me and I hugged her, and then we were
What happened next?
just like darkness was there, and we were told to get out of the room. We weren't supposed to be in there. I wasn't supposed to be touching Maya, and that what were we bringing? What was that? We tried to explain that it was, the miraculous, Mother Mary, and that we were bringing her to be with Maya so that she could pray. And they said that was not allowed and that we had to go. So we left the room.
And who's they? Nurses or doctors?
Just whatever that dark force was behind me, I didn't really, it just was dark. That's how, the only way I can explain it.
And
Dark
it was
force
explained to
behind
them,
me.
You mentioned this is the Mother Mary. She's here to pray with Maya. Is that right?
That Maya would pray with her, yes.
And so, did they give you any reason that you couldn't be there with her?
They did not, no, sir.
But they kicked you out of the room immediately.
Yes, sir.
Where did you go?
To the chapel,
What'd you do in the chapel?
prayed,
And where was the chapel?
downstairs in the hospital.
And were you praying for Maya?
Yes.
Somebody delete that.
I missed something. Were you allowed to leave the Mother Mary with her in the room there?
No, sir, I was not.
You weren't allowed to leave the rosary beads that would go with
No,
Mother
sir.
Mary? And you weren't allowed to leave the prayer book?
No, sir.
And you went down to the chapel and prayed afterwards?
Yes, sir.
How long did you stay there?
An hour at least, maybe more, because other people came in and saw us in there, and they had sick children, and they asked us what we were doing, and we said we were praying, and they came in and prayed with us for their children as well. So it was a whole group of us praying for sick children.
At some point before this incident at the hospital, had you given Maya a rosary or a medal or something like that?
I've probably given them, I pass out miraculous medals, which I carry with me. Where are they? There you are. And she's a miraculous medal, and it has Mary on there,
She brought it with her.
and it's on a chain, so you can wear it. And then there's a card that shows you the miraculous medal. It's a miracle that happened, and it explains, if I may, it's just real short. Okay.
Sure what the question is at this point.
It's given to people for,
She said, objection, Your Honor. I'm not even sure what the question is at this point. It's not going to play well if there's any religious people on the jury.
And let's put it down. Let's wait for a question.
Is this something that you've given Maya in the past?
yes,
Have you seen Maya recently?
yes.
Does she still have it?
Not aware of that, but I can tell you what she said to me when I gave her a hug.
Please.
Hearsay.
How did you know when you were in the room there that you couldn't leave the Mother Mary statue?
We were told that we had to leave the room and take whatever was in the box out.
I heard your earlier testimony that no reason was given. Did they ever present you with some sort of list of who was allegedly allowed or not allowed in the hospital to see Maya?
No, sir.
The witness.
Your witness. Good luck with this one. Can't make her, you can't attack her. Oh boy, this is not who should be doing this cross, in my opinion.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I love your hat.
Thank you.
I love your hat.
I just have a couple questions for you. Before, well, first of all, you, as you said, you live in the neighborhood, same neighborhood as the
Yes.
Kowalskis, correct?
Correct.
All right. And you talked about the first time you went to the house and you brought Mary, but they had company or they were leaving, so you did not stay and do the whole ritual, correct?
Correct.
Right. And then you had the second time when you went because Mrs. Kowalski had called you and you went there and she was very upset.
Correct.
Right. Almost incoherent.
I'm sorry.
Almost incoherent.
Yes. I mean, she got it out, but I had to physically be there with her.
Right. Understand. And it was after that visit that you went to the hospital, correct?
Correct.
Right. And when you went to the hospital, you don't recall checking in with security
No, ma'am.
or getting a name tag.
No, ma'am.
Right. And is it fair to say that you were unaware as to whether or not DCF, the Department of Children and Family Services, was requiring background checks for anybody who would be visiting Maya.
Objection.
Legal basis.
Facts not evidence.
Overruled.
Ooh, that's interesting. The judge is like requesting a legal basis for the objection. Usually, I mean, sometimes you object and the judge knows why you're objecting, but I guess in this case, if you don't get the reason for your objection right, it's going to be sustained, even if it's a proper objection. That's interesting.
That's
Just
not something
repeat the
you were aware
question.
of, correct?
I was not aware of any of those facts, ma'am.
You were
Facts not.
who would be visiting Maya.
Objection.
Legal basis.
Facts not evidence.
Overruled. You can answer.
That's
Just
not something
repeat
you
the
were aware
question.
of, correct?
I was not aware of any of those facts, ma'am. No.
Right. You had no knowledge as to what restrictions there were or were not with respect to visitors for Maya, correct?
Correct.
Correct. Now, you would certainly understand that, well, I'll strike that. When you went to the hospital room, you were only in there briefly, correct?
Seconds.
Seconds. And you indicated that you saw Maya and she was sitting crisscross applesauce on the bed.
Mm-hmm.
She seemed happy to see you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes,
You gave her a big hug.
I did.
She hugged you back.
Yes.
And then you were told that you had to leave, correct?
Correct.
All right.
She was allowed to hug Maya. The judge wouldn't let Beata hug Maya. So Beata went home and took her own life because that was the final straw.
And you said that there was some dark force. You're not talking about the room was dark. You felt some sort of,
Yeah, it was like the
Dark
devil was
energy.
behind me. We were the light coming in, and there was the devil behind me. It's what it was. It was dark. It was the devil.
The devil. Kathy
and
Beatty.
then,
I wish she would have said the devil who was wearing the Johns Hopkins Hospital badge around her neck and said she was the social worker for the hospital. I wish she would have said that.
you saw Maya in the Easter of 2020. You recall seeing her then?
That was during COVID. If I may ask the question, it's
Um,
all those years sort of.
yes, I'm just going by your deposition testimony you previously said. Do
Can you
recall seeing her
refresh
at
my
Easter?
memory?
Do you recall
I
seeing her
do.
at Easter?
Yes.
Okay. And your description was that she was walking like a beautiful, thriving young teenager when you saw her, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Whitney.
Did any of the nurses that entered the room tell you to go downstairs to get a badge? You missed the security desk or something like that?
No, sir.
Did any of them mention to you that these DCF background checks were being done on supervisors, but not just plain visitors?
No, sir.
Were you there as a spy or were you there to give Maya hope?
I was there to give Maya hope.
Overruled.
That's a
Were you
great
there
question.
as a spy
No,
or you were
sir.
there to give Maya hope?
I was there to give Maya hope.
Nothing further. Thank you.
Ms. Crowell, anything further?
No.
Members of the jury, do any of you have a question?
Oh, yeah. Night Owl, I'm going to suggest to you they thought maybe they had hollowed out that Traveling Mary and put some
Yes.
liquid K in there because that's why they
Question
took
from
the
the jury
communion
is,
wafers away because they
Did
thought
the dark force people say they could not?
the communion wafers were dosed with liquid K. And we're back. Yeah, it looks good that day. This was only day 2 of the trial. If you've been watching the trial lately, because the trial started September 21st, so we've already been into this for a month. She hasn't been in court a couple of days in the recent week, I think, right, you guys? But you can see that the stress is really getting to her. She looks very healthy in this picture. You can see the more this trial goes on, the more stressed out she is and the less healthy she's looking. I'm sure the jury sees it too.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Question from the jury is, did the Dark Force people say they could not pray with Maya?
I'm going to put the closed captions on, see if there's any better.
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Question from the jury is, did the Dark Force people say they could not pray with Maya?
Yes.
Any follow-up, Mr. Whitney?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Crowells?
Yes. Ma'am, isn't it that you were there for a few seconds, they came in and they told you that you had to leave, that you could not be there, correct?
Joyce was explaining to them that we were there to pray, and they said we could not do that.
They said you could not stay, correct?
We could not pray or stay.
Members of the jury, are there any other questions?
We could not pray or
Ladies,
stay.
Be excused.
Yes, Your Honor.
Oh, that's right.
Hey, Ms. Brown, you're free to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's what I thought was some interesting testimony for those of you who have not been watching the trial from the very beginning, because this was in the very beginning of the trial. She was one of the first witnesses called on behalf of the plaintiff. And in my opinion, she's one of the most credible witnesses that we've seen so far in this trial. She doesn't have an agenda. Her only agenda was to go there and give Maya hope and comfort her. And this is going to go to the religious claims, to the claims that she was violated, her civil rights. Maya's civil rights were violated because they did not allow her to practice her religion in the hospital. But, in conjunction with the testimony of Tori Neas, the pink shirt lady, taking the communion wafers away because they had suspicions that the communion wafers might have been dosed with liquid K. And yet they let her have the nail polish remover and the chapstick, which begs the question, couldn't you put a little liquid K in the nail polish? Did they actually test the nail polish remover and test the chapstick to make sure there wasn't some liquid K inside the chapstick? Because they took away her chocolate cake. They took away her communion wafers. They didn't test any of that stuff for drugs. Yes, the truth flows easy. That's exactly what I was going to say, Peter. When you're telling the truth on the stand, it's easy. You can tell. You can tell. I hope everybody does jury duty. I hope everybody does not try and get out of jury duty, because that is one of the changes I hope to see from this case. And in addition to fixing the DCF system, in addition to making it more difficult to take someone's parental rights away other than some unfounded allegations that have no basis in fact, which is just crazy to me. I hope that, and all of a sudden we're getting a lot more public awareness of CRPS and other chronic pain diseases that so many people who have them have been told that they are lying and it's all in their head and they're not really in pain. This is bringing some awareness to that issue, and also some awareness to the fact that you should want to serve on a jury. You should be excited for jury duty. Everybody wants to get out of jury duty. I wish I could be on a jury. They never let me on a jury. I'm just like, bye-bye, Melanie, because they know me. I know the lawyers. I am a lawyer. They don't want me on a jury. They probably don't want a lot of my law enforcement people on the jury either. But you should want to serve on a jury. It's a very, very important civic duty. You do get paid a little bit, but also if you are employed, your employer usually pays you for jury duty. They're not allowed to not pay you for jury duty. It depends obviously on your job and who your employer is, but for the most part, this jury asked a question of the judge because the judge had put a hard stop on this trial of November 9th. So one of the jury questions, I forget which day it was, does November 9th include jury deliberations? They wanted to know when they were going to be able to leave, because this is a long time to be sitting on a jury. It's going to be maybe 8 weeks that these people have been out of work for this case. So the judge did say that he wanted the jury to get the case no later than November 7th. So I don't know how much, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of time left. So I don't know if it's going to go that long, but we will see. All right, you guys, it's been really fun hanging out with you tonight. I may do a document deep dive this week on this case. If you're interested in that, let me know. Thanks to Lauren, who sent me the documents. I have the report from the sheriff's department, which has a lot of information about why Detective Graham was there. If you'd like to see that, put it in the comments. I do read the comments. Please keep them respectful and classy. And I do welcome respectful debate. But once you attack me, any of my viewers, subscribers, commenters, or moderators, you will be blocked. You will be timed out. And you don't want that. Really, nobody wants that. But since there's almost 1,200 people here right now, how about we hit the thumbs up on the way out? Thank you, everyone. If you like it, hit subscribe and make sure you hit the bell to get all notifications. Robbie is a new member. Thank you so much. Cheryl Arnold is a new member. And Louisiana Girl, thank you so much for joining. And also, thank you, Lynn, for the super sticker. I really appreciate you. 2574. One last question from Russell Chandler. Can you wear a hat in court? Yeah. Well, here's an interesting thing. Just a quick story. When I was a young lawyer, all the way back in the 90s, there was a judge who got really, women lawyers were not allowed to wear slacks in his courtroom. They had to wear skirts or a dress, or they would be reprimanded in open court. Believe it. Crazy. So I don't know about the hat. I think you have to take off your hat when you go through metal detectors. But back in the day, you couldn't even wear pants if you were a woman. So who knows? All right, everybody. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. I hope you have a great night, and I will see you again real soon. Peace, love, and happiness. Keep it classy, my friends. Keep it classy.